Hey guys, welcome back to my video. My name is Sophie, aka Peachy Craft. Today's going to be a bit of a longer video. It's going to be a bit of a chatty one because we are filming my watercolour collection. So you can see loads of watercolour palettes on screen now. Let me just say this is palettes, not tubes, just for those wondering. And these aren't even all of my palettes. There's some off screen, there's some to the side. I just have so many, so I thought it'd be fun to just go through them and tell you about my palettes. So let's just jump right on into the video. Okay, so when I first started watercolour painting, I used Winsor & Newton Cotman colours, which I don't have anymore. I had the really big palette, and then I finally upgraded to White Knight watercolours. As you can see, this is really messy. I actually let my 2-year-old daughter use this to paint, just obviously supervised. That's why all the colours are a bit groggy and everything. But these paints are really nice. You can see they're really wet. I've had this probably 6 years or 8 years maybe, and the colours are still really usable. There's no mould. Obviously you can't really find White Knight watercolours anymore. I can't anyway, so I don't really use them anymore. I also have the 12 colour palette, and I really like this format of palette. I much prefer this one to this one, just for the travelability of it. It's a lot easier to take out and use, and it doesn't take up so much of my desk. These aren't the original colours that came in this. I kind of swapped out colours from in here to in here, more colours that I'd use more frequently. But yeah, they're really nice paints. I just don't use them very often anymore because I've kind of upgraded to newer paints and just more professional quality brands in my opinion. So yeah, these are really nice paints. I just don't use them that much anymore. So after using White Knight, I actually upgraded to Schminker. This is actually a push present from when I was pregnant. My partner got me it, and Schminker is really high quality, really expensive paints, and that's why it was a present. I didn't buy it myself just because I was only just getting into watercolour, and spending that much money was a bit risky for me. So this is the first Schminker watercolours, and I'd probably say more professional grade paints I bought. And you can see here, this is all the colours swatched out. I really like Schminker. It's not my favourite brand, and I think when I first started watercolour, what it was is I wasn't too sure how to use it, and I was applying the paint too thickly. So you can see on this swatch sheet, if I move it slightly, some of the swatches are shiny, and when I was painting I'd get that shiny effect, but only with Schminker. So it kind of put me off the brand for a while because I thought it was the paints, and it was more so just me using it. I was using it too thickly. I was putting too much paint on my brush. But after the Schminker, I actually started buying Daniel Smith tubes, and I made my very own first palette. And here you can see it's actually got some colours removed because throughout the years I've took pans out of like favourite colours and put them into newer palettes. But this is all Daniel Smith watercolours, and there's colours in here that have been in here forever just because I just don't use these kind of colours anymore. Like I think this is Pyrrole Scarlet. I don't really use Nicolezo Yellow. Potter's Pink isn't a colour I tend to gravitate towards. But the thing about watercolours, when you dry them into tubes, you can use them for years and years. So even though I'm not using these now, if I ever do a specific painting, I can kind of take these out and put them into a palette that I need that certain colour for. So I really like that accessibility with half pans and these metal tin palettes, is you can kind of mix and match and revamp your palette if you get a bit bored of using it. So that's really fun. But yeah, so these are all Daniel Smith, who I love Daniel Smith watercolours. They're really nice. I'd say they're harder to re-wet compared to Schminker, but they're not difficult to re-wet at all. They're still just as beautiful. The thing that I really liked about Daniel Smith is I loved the granulation that you got with the colours. Compared to Schminker, you can see these colours they're like base flat colours, which is fine. They're beautiful in themselves, but I was really impressed by the granulation and the splitting of colours within Daniel Smith. I thought it was really unique. Like colours like Imperial Purple and Cascade Green, they were just really beautiful to me, and I'd not used anything like it before. So yeah, so that was kind of my next little upgrade, shall we say. So I started venturing into these big plastic palettes, and these have pros and cons, and I'd say for these ones in particular, they're really large. So I don't particularly use these palettes that often, just because they take up so much desk space. I don't have a massive desk, so that's a bit of a drawback for me. I don't really use them that often, but the pros of this is you can see just how much paint you can, oh, that's still wet. You can fit in every single well. Like, you can fit in so much, and you can get a really big brush in there. So if you like abstract art and use really large brushes, this might be great for you. But for me, the main thing is that it just takes up so much space. If I had a larger desk, it probably would be better, but I don't. So that's that. So in this one, which has more paint, more generously added, is actually Magello paint. And I think this is, a lot of these colours are the pure pigment set, and then a few added extra colours that I added myself. So let's see, so we've got lavender, we've got opera pink, cobalt teal. I can't remember if that's pure pigment or not, but these are really nice paints. I love Magello paints. They're great beginner paints. And the reason is they're really vibrant. They reactivate easily. Like I say, these are all still wet, and they've been untouched for probably a year at this point. So you can just see how nice and re-wettable they are. And also, they're really easy to control. So they don't move much when you spread them into water, which can be great for beginners because you're not fighting with the paint, and you're not like trying to control it too much. It kind of stays where you put it. So I really like these paints. They're great for me for when I do portraits and things like that. And also they're really vibrant, so I really like the colour payoff. And then in this one, you can see this is all, I think it's like 33 wells or something like that. This has mainly Daniel Smith paints. And like you can see, they're pretty dried down. This is one of my older palettes, so this has been in here for years. There's a little orange paint there that's peeled off. But again, Daniel Smith colours. The great thing about tubes is you can make so many palettes from it. So I don't tend to use this palette that often because, like I say, of the size of it, but I've always got it, and I've got more Daniel Smith tube paint, so I can always make more palettes for different occasions. So this one I'd kind of use at home, and I can make smaller ones for when I'm out and about and things like that. So yeah, I like these palettes, but I don't reach for them anymore just for the size of them. They're a bit not very usable for me. Okay, so these palettes, they're a little bit smaller than the palettes I've just showed you. They're still big, like this is a standard 24 pan metal tin, but they are smaller than those ones I just showed by quite a bit, I'd say. And these are the Magello Airtight palettes. And the first one I got was the 20 well one, which I do like this palette. It's really nice. I love the clear insert. I just think it's pretty. And this is 20 wells, and in this one I have Quar watercolors, which Quar watercolors, I don't use this too often, but I really should because I love Quar watercolors. They're so bright and vibrant, and they're kind of the opposite to Magello. They're a bit, I can't think of the word, kind of not uncontrollable, but they do their own thing. They just spread out in water, they bloom, they're very, if you like abstract art, I suppose these would be really good just because of the unpredictability, that's the word, that these paints have. But yeah, I really like them, and they re-wet so easily. You can see that they're just so glossy and pretty, and just look at the vibrancy of these colours. They're just so pretty. I can't remember what this one is, but it looks really pretty. I might have to swatch that at the end for you guys. So yeah, so I really like these palettes. I actually prefer, though, the 18 well palettes, which you can get these in blue or pink, I think. But I think the only ones that I could get at the time were the pink ones, which is fine. I just label them. So this is Michael Harding watercolour, which again, bought these paints recently. I've only used them once, but from my first impressions, I absolutely love them. Very vibrant, just really good watercolours. I was unsure of buying them at first because they were so expensive, and Michael Harding watercolour is a newer thing. I know he's really popular for his oil paints, but these, they're just really nice. I've got a few extra little slots here, which I can add more colours if I want. And yeah, I really like them. I think I drew a duck, I painted a duck with this one. I wish they did opera pink though. I've not got opera pink, and that is one of my favourite colours. But a lot of brands, like I'm not sure if Quad does opera pink, and I don't think Michael Harding does, but that does put me off because I know opera pink isn't like, it's not for everyone, but if you use opera pink, it's kind of like a ride or die colour. And for me, it's ride or die. Like I need opera pink in my palette. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful colour. And it doesn't bother me that it's not light fast because I tend to use it in sketchbooks and things like that. So yeah, that's my Michael Harding palette, and they have this little clear thing again. I just love that. I think it's just so cool. Like you get double mixing space, look. You can use the lid and that. And then in this one, which is one of my more well-loved ones, this is Daniel Smith paint. And you can see I'm really generous with the amount of paint I add to these. I add a lot because I know that I'm going to use it. And don't get me wrong, this will probably last years, this amount of paint. The only drawback to these palettes is you can't change out colours. So in this one, I actually have Daniel Smith Potter's Pink, which is a colour which I've realised I just don't know how to use it. If anyone has any tips and tricks, let me know. But it's just not a colour I use. It's really hard to re-wet. And it's a very weak colour. It's granulating, but it's very weak. And I just find it hard to use. So yeah, that's probably one of the main drawbacks, is you can't swap and change colours. So what you can see I've done is I needed purple to paint something, and for some reason I didn't really add a purple to this palette. And I'm more of a, I like to have my colours on hand. I'm not big on mixing colours like purples, because I find that to get a vibrant purple, it's just easier to buy a vibrant purple rather than to mix it. So what I did is I just took some pans from one of my metal palettes and added it in. These aren't fixed, but they tend to stay in. They don't move around a lot once shut. So that's fine for me. So yeah, I love these palettes. They're probably one of my favourite design of palettes. Okay, so kind of going from one extreme to the other, these are my art toolkit palettes, which art toolkit palettes, they are quite expensive. These are the folio palettes, just because you can buy pre-made palettes on their website, but I like to use my own paint because I don't know, I just don't want to use the paint that they add. But anyway, I like to mix my own palettes and kind of customize them, and they are quite expensive to buy, but they are really practical. So they're kind of like business card holders, I think, and they've got a metallic magnet on the back, and you can literally just pull out magnets, and they're so customizable, they're so compact and sleek. So if you love plein air painting, these are definitely great to use, I'd say. So I have two of the folio palettes and one of the demi palettes, and this is my newer one. I've not actually painted with this one yet. I tried using M. Graham watercolours, and it literally just leaked everywhere all over the palette. So because M. Graham is a really runny kind of paint, so definitely use paint which you know sets to a well consistency and it's not going to move much. So this has Daniel Smith in, and it's all primary colours, cool and warm. And then this one is, I bought the Schminke 24 colour tube set, and I actually filled this up using all the Schminke colours. And I don't actually use this at all, I'd say. I think I've used it once or twice and I've had it years. And the reason I don't use it is, like I say, Schminke isn't my favourite brand of paint, and if I am to use it, I would prefer to use one of the Schminke palettes with the pans, basically. That's the only reasoning I have. There's no real logic to it. So yeah, this is kind of just a palette that sits in my collection. Put some little stickers on it. And this one, I call this my fun palette. This has just some basic watercolour colours, like you've got a cool yellow, warm red, whatever, ultramarine blue. And then I've also got my Holbein pastel colours in this. I bought the Holbein watercolour pastel set, and I think a lot of these ones, that one, just a lot of the obviously pastel looking colours are that. And I don't use it very often, but if I want to paint something fun with splashes of colour, I tend to gravitate towards this one just for a bit of fun. So yeah, I really like these palettes. I love how practical they are and how little, they're just easy to store. This one I've not used yet. Maybe it's too little, I don't know, because the mixing space is quite small. But I find the mixing space in the folio palettes is big enough for me. So yeah. So this is a bit of a random mix of palettes. So this is another art toolkit palette. And these ones actually have the bigger square pan wells. And this one is actually my favourite palette out of them. I really like the big wells just because you can get a nice big brush in there. They're really easy to use. And mixed with these kind of half square wells, you can actually get quite a lot of colours in this. And like I said, this is enough mixing space for me if I'm working in kind of like a smaller sketchbook or just, you know, a smaller piece in general. So this is actually Daniel Smith watercolours, and as you can see, I've got my trusty cobalt teal, opera pink, lavender. New Gamboge is one of my favourite Daniel Smith watercolours, and also quinacridone coral and quinacridone rose. They're kind of like my favourite colours for their mixing capabilities. They're just so beautiful. Quinacridone coral is the only warm red I will use. Like I say, I don't like colours like pyrrole scarlet and kind of really intense warm reds. They're just not for me. They don't work in my art style. So yeah, I love this palette. It's always in my pencil case. It's just great. And then this is my most used tin palette that I've made. So some of the wells I actually brought from my other tin palette, my first ever Daniel Smith one, and like you can see, I just literally added them to this well. And these are actually magnetized to the bottom of the palette. I don't have the insert thing with all the metal things on, I don't know what it's called. But in this palette I have Daniel Smith and M. Graham, and this was my first palette where I used M. Graham. They're really expensive paints, but oh my goodness, they are so beautiful. Quinacridone Rose M. Graham is my favourite version of Quinacridone Rose there is. It's just so vibrant and beautiful, and I really love M. Graham paints. I don't know why I don't have a palette dedicated to just M. Graham. If you'd like to see that in a video, then give this video a like and leave a comment saying let's do M. Graham, because they're such beautiful paints and it would be fun to have a palette just with M. Graham. They're so easy to re-wet and they're just pretty. So yeah, I have M. Graham and I have Daniel Smith. A few of my favourite colours are obviously the Quinacridone Rose from M. Graham. I have Indanthone Blue from Daniel Smith, Indigo from M. Graham, and then one of my all-time favourite colours, which when I first started using watercolour I did not like, and that's because it's so intense. It can really overwhelm a mixture, but now that I've used watercolour for a bit longer, it's one of my favourite colours, and that is Phthalo Turquoise. The one I use most often is Daniel Smith, but I'm sure other brands are just as beautiful as well. So yeah, I love this palette. I haven't used it for a little while, but it's definitely one of my probably most customized to my liking palette. So yeah, that one's really pretty. And then, like I said, Schmincke isn't my favourite brand, but this is the palette that made me like Schmincke watercolour, and I think it's because I'd been watercolouring for a couple of years after my first Schmincke palette, and I kind of bought this because I'm a watercolour hoarder and it just looked really beautiful. And this is the 24 pan full pan Schmincke watercolour set, and my experience using these compared to when I first used Schmincke was so much better. The colours are vibrant, they're easy to use for me, they mix well, and I think it just is down to usability and experience at the time. So let me just show you this swatch sheet. So this is all the colours in this palette, and you can see they're just so beautiful. And then these mixes here, they just look really pretty as well. I really love this palette. I haven't used it for a little while, but if I am to use Schmincke, I do tend to grab this palette. And like I say, these will last forever. The issue is I just have so much paint, and that's why nothing ever gets so much love, because I just have so much to choose from. So you don't really see many wells that are empty in my palettes, and that's because I'm just trying to use up everything at one given time. So in that kind of theory, nothing gets used up because I'm using so much. So yeah, so I also love this palette. Okay, so these are more kind of random palettes in my collection, and I'll just start with this one. This is a little Schmincke small palette, and it literally just has a mix of colours that I've kind of took out from other palettes, and I've had nowhere to put them, so I've just plunked them in here. So there's a few M Graham from the basics set of I think it's a set of 5 of M Graham colours, and it has like a lemon yellow, sap green, burnt sienna, ultramarine, and I've just plunked them in here kind of for storage. I've got a few Schmincke colours. You can kind of tell them because they're a bit drier looking in the pan, and then just I think this is Daniel Smith Quinacridone Coral, and it's just in here. I love this colour. It's just, I've probably poured loads of pans of Quinacridone Coral, so this is kind of like overflow, my little overflow palette, I'd say. So yeah, just a nice little random one there. And then this is the only Roman Schmal palette I own. And Roman Schmal, I know it's really popular. People love this brand, and that's why I bought this palette. The issue is, like I said, I just have so much paint that I'm constantly, I tend to gravitate towards my palettes I prefer. So I bought this because it was, I think it was on sale. It was a really good deal, and I have literally never used it. So it come with these pans. I think there's 12 full pans, and then I bought these 2 colours separate because I thought they were pretty. So we've got Ocean Blue by Roman Schmal and Misty Morning, which I know was like a nice granulating grey pink, so I bought them too as well. If you'd like to see a first impression of Roman Schmals, let me know. Like I said, I've never used the brand before. I have this beautiful palette just sitting here, and like these are still, they still feel sticky, and I've literally never used them, and I've probably had this palette for a couple of years now. So let me know if you'd like to see a video on this. That could be fun. I think this was the Hortus Botanicus. So yeah, beautiful palette. I've heard lots of good things, so one day when I try this, hopefully I will like them. I bet you're watching this video and you're thinking, wow, for someone who claims Schmincke isn't her favourite brand, she sure has a lot of Schmincke. Like, what's going on? And the thing with Schmincke is their products that they design are just so beautiful. Schmincke, in my opinion, is a really collectible brand. The limited edition palettes they do and the limited edition paints, they're just really beautiful. So if you like to collect watercolour, Schmincke is probably definitely a brand to get into because their palettes are always really nice and unique, and they're always coming out with new things, so it's really fun. So this is, what is this? This was a Christmas present, I think, off my daughter, and this is the, well, I can't remember what the name of it was, but it's kind of got unique colours. So it's got Potter's Pink, Cobalt Violet, Phthalo Sapphire Blue, Perylene Green, just really nice colours. And then these ones here are kind of just random colours that I added. Not to use, just because I had nowhere to store them. So I just kind of slotted them in here. So this little collection is kind of like my unopened Schminke collectible things. And the reason that I've just never used them is because, like I said, I just have so much paint. So this is a nice unique mixing set. I really liked the colour selection in this, and that's why I bought it. And then this is the Schminke special edition collaboration set with Jackson's. And the reason I bought this one, from what I can remember, is it came with a really nice brush. But I've actually took the brush out and I used the brush. And also, one of the things that really drew me to it was it come with a half pan of brilliant opera rose. And like I say, I love opera rose, and it's really unique to see a palette with a half pan of it. So that is literally what made me buy this whole entire thing, which to some people you might think, gosh, that's crazy. But watercolour is really my passion. I love watercolour. It's what I invest my money into just because I love it so much. So yeah, I've never used this palette, and I haven't used these palettes because I don't want to. I will eventually use them. I'm not literally letting them just gather dust for the sake of gathering dust. But again, this one came with really unique colours like quinacridone gold hue, transparent orange, which is one of my favourite oranges, quinacridone purple, just really beautiful colours. So I really like the look of this one. I'm excited to use it one day. I can't remember what brush it came with. And then again, the packaging on this one was just absolutely beautiful. So this is I think it was called the Retro watercolour set. And they had like a bigger set and a little one. This is the little one. And the reason I bought the little one is because look at how slimlined and compact that is. And just the retro text on the side is just absolutely beautiful. This is really like kind of a travel palette. It's so compact and so beautiful, but you can still fit the loads of colours in it. And these are all the original colours that come with it. So we have like Viridian, Ultramarine Finest, Vermilion, Raw Umber, Yellow Raw Ochre. And the reason I haven't used these colours is because I own so much Schminke that I already probably have these colours. And a lot of the colours I don't gravitate towards. So like Yellow Raw Ochre is just not a colour that I would use, including this English Venetian Red, Raw Umber. I just don't use these kind of colours. So when I eventually use this, I'll probably personalise it with colours more suited to me. And look at this, it comes with like a little retro card, which is beautiful. And as always, Schminke come with these little swatch sheets. So they're just really beautiful collections, and that's why I have so much Schminke. And this isn't even like the holy grail item what I have. I'm going to show you now the ultimate Schminke purchase that I've ever got. It's really amazing. Okay, what is this giant wooden thing on my desk? You're probably thinking. This is obviously Schminke, and I think it's either the largest or one of the largest sets that you can buy. So it's this really luxury wooden box. It has some nice metal clips, and then you open it up and look at all these beautiful paints. So I can't remember how many there is. There might have been something like 48 full pans. I bought the full pan set, and it comes with all Schminke colours, and it's just really beautiful. It comes with a ceramic palette, and I can't remember if there was anything in here. I just can't remember. Like I said, I've had this years. So this is kind of my holy grail Schminke. And what I do is, because obviously I have loads of Schminke palettes, I kind of personalise them. You can see there's some kind of little pans in here now, which didn't come with the set. And I'll kind of take colours out, which I know I'm probably not going to use, or I don't want it in that palette. And I will replace them with colours from here, which I know will suit that palette better and I will use. So this is kind of what this is. This is kind of like my Schminke storage for pans, should I say. And I've actually got a couple of brands that aren't Schminke in here. So I've got a few Sennelier colours, and that's mainly because I just had nowhere to store them. So I just plonked them in here. You got to do what you got to do. So yeah, so this is a really beautiful set. I bought this mainly for the collectability. And like I say, I can kind of just swap colours out, which I know I'm going to use, and have somewhere nice and deluxe to store them. When I first started in watercolour, I was really intelligent, and I would label my watercolour pans with what they are, which you think that's just common sense. But as I use watercolour more often and I set up more and more palettes, I'm just too lazy and I don't label them anymore. And you really should, because I have pans from other palettes and I look at them and I'm like, what is that colour? I'll never know. I can try and deduce it from like swatching and things, but it's really difficult to know. So I would definitely suggest labelling your watercolours. It's just smart, you know. Don't be like me, be smart. But yeah, this was definitely a hefty purchase, but it's really beautiful and you have so many colours. So it's just beautiful. I can't say anything other than this is a beautiful set. And that's why I love Schmincke, is because the craftsmanship and the uniqueness of their sets is just really beautiful. So yeah, that is my main watercolour. My largest watercolour purchase is definitely this beautiful Schmincke box. And then let's just get on to my last palette. Let's just show it now. So this is another Magello Airtight palette, and I actually really like this palette. The only issue is you can see it's clipped here. It's really difficult to open. The latches are really tight. There we go, geez. So yeah, I've got a nice rainbow assortment here, shall we say. And this is actually the Shinhan hybrid, Shinhan Pass. I think it's Shinhan Pass, I think that's what it's called. And it's basically a watercolour gouache hybrid. And I basically bought the big box set on a whim, kind of thinking, will I like it, won't it? I don't know. But I bought it, and these are definitely one of my favourite watercolour paints. And the reason is you can literally use them as watercolour or gouache. They're really just diverse to use. They're beautiful. And it really made me think, hey, I should probably try Shinhan watercolour, like the actual watercolour tubes, to see what they're like. So I think that probably would be my next purchase, would be some Shinhan watercolour, just to see what they're like. But these paints are very beautiful. If you've kind of been umming and ahhing about the Shinhan Pass watercolour gouache hybrids, definitely give them a go. They really are lovely paint. So there we have it, guys. That is my watercolour palette collection. Just emphasize the palette word there. And I'm not actually even sure these are all of my palettes. I swear I had more, but I've moved house just that many times, I can't find them. But yeah, like you can see, I obviously love watercolour because I've invested a lot of money into it. So this is all of my palettes. I do have a large collection of watercolour tubes as well. So let me know, should I film a watercolour tube collection video as well? Would that be fun to watch? Because I have a lot of unique colours in watercolour tubes. Like I have the Schmincke granulation sets. I have just loads. I can't think off the top of my head, but I have loads of watercolour tubes. So let me know if you'd like to see that too. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. And let me know if there's any palettes in particular that you'd like a kind of a full video on, you'd like to see me swatch out the colours, and just some thoughts and reviews on certain brands. Let me know. But thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll catch everyone in the next video. Bye, guys.